Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. What we have right here is a brand new G-SHOCK watch with Google's WearOS, which means that for the first time ever, you're combining the powerful, durable design of a G-SHOCK watch, that bulky aesthetic that a lot of people really like, with Google's WearOS, which means that it's now a full-blown smartwatch. You can answer and direct calls, listen to music offline, track workouts, and do a lot more than that with this watch. And we'll be talking about a lot of that throughout this video. And so it really makes for an interesting combination that we really haven't seen before in the smartwatch world. So we have plenty to talk about in this video about the G-SHOCK GSW H1000. Plenty of really impressive and very good things about this watch, but also a couple drawbacks that you want to be aware of before you consider buying it. I've been wearing this and testing it for about 3 weeks now, and I have plenty of testing data and things to talk about throughout this video. So with that being said, guys, let's jump into it. I want to start off with a physical tour just to show you guys what we're dealing with here. So starting off on the front of this watch, you'll see that in typical G-SHOCK style, this is definitely a big chunky watch. It's about 56 millimeters across, almost 20 millimeters thick, and it weighs over 100 grams. So definitely not for the faint of heart here. This is a very large watch. But of course, with that, you get some very incredible durability. It's water resistant up to 200 meters. It's shock resistant. Obviously, you could hit this thing with like a hammer. You could really do anything you want to it. And I think my wrist is definitely going to break before anything on this watch breaks. On top of that, it's also relatively comfortable. So you'll see on the inside of it, we have the little blue pieces on either side, which kind of match the curve of your wrist there and make it very secure and really a good fit on my watch. Granted, it's still very heavy, so when you're running, you're going to know there's a big watch on your wrist, but at least it's not rattling around and it's really not uncomfortable. Now, some other things on the front. One thing that is really impressive that makes this watch also unique is if you look closely, you'll see it's actually a dual display. So we have a 1.2-inch display on the back, which is your standard color bright display that you're used to seeing on a WearOS watch. And then on top, you actually have a little LCD display that doesn't require nearly as much energy. And this is going to be your always-on display, which means that if you're not looking at your watch, this one turns on and it still shows the time. It shows your heart rate and a bunch of other stuff like that, but it doesn't require nearly as much power, which should really be helping the battery life. On top of that, if your watch dies, or if you just shift into a time-only mode, it'll kick into that watch and it can last up to 30 days while still showing you, again, the date, the time, and stuff like that. So overall, very impressive. I love to see that second display on here, and especially for a G-SHOCK watch, I think the market they're really going for is really going to appreciate having that second display there. Now, on the right side, we have 3 buttons. Nothing on here rotates. We don't have a crown or a bezel to rotate. So it's going to be everything with the touchscreen and with the buttons. But the buttons on the right side, I'll get into an interface tour in a second and talk about what each of them does, but we do have those 3 buttons there. And then on the left side, we don't have any buttons here. Instead, we have just a little blank space on the bottom. In the middle, we have a sensor. I believe that's our barometer. And then on the top, we actually have our charger, which is also unique. I've never seen a smartwatch that has a charger on the side like that. Usually they're on the back, but the charger is very convenient. You just have a little magnetic thing and just kind of snaps in there, and it charges reasonably quickly. And then looking at the back, it's actually very simple. We just have our little heart rate sensor in the middle. And of course, I will test out the accuracy of the heart rate sensor and the GPS. Like I said, I've been wearing this for a couple weeks now, and I have plenty of accuracy data. We'll be talking about that later on in the video. Now, talking about what's under the hood with this watch, besides just the heart rate, you can also tell the altitude. It works as a compass. You can see barometric pressure, and you have 3 different modes of positioning, including GPS and GLONASS as well. And we have 8 gigabytes of storage with 1 gigabyte of RAM. And the downside, though, a very interesting aspect here, is that even though we have a newer chip available, the Snapdragon 4100, this is using the slightly aged 3100, the same one that we saw on the Fossil Gen 5 from 2 years ago, which granted, it works well enough and certainly gets the job done in this watch, but it doesn't quite last as long with the battery life. So that's a drawback there, and we'll talk more about that later on in the video. But some other things to note with this, it doesn't have a speaker, so that's kind of a drawback if you wanted to use it as a voice assistant. You do still have a microphone on here, and so you can ask it questions, but you also cannot field phone calls. I imagine both of those are related to the fact that you want it to be 200 meters water resistant, and it's hard to make a speaker that is resistant for 200 meters. But, I mean, it is what it is. It's a compromise they made. Another drawback is that this does not have NFC, or at least I couldn't find NFC on here, which means you don't have Google Pay or any kind of contactless payment on here. Again, a subtle drawback that some people might really miss. So talking a little bit more about the accuracy, we can take a look at this 4-mile run I did, and the GPS, first of all, was very accurate. You can see that all along the trail, it was almost exactly spot on, almost no drunk wandering at all, and the distance was pretty much perfect. At the end of the run, I also went on top of a parking garage and ran around the corners to see how it trimmed off those corners, and you can see, again, almost perfect corners right here. So the GPS was really fantastic. Now, shifting over to the heart rate, luckily this is the same story. It looks really, really good. The heart rate sensor did a fantastic job. Even though it doesn't have like 4 or 8 diodes on the back, it turns out you really don't need that for most runs. You can see here that it tracked it very, very well for the majority of my run. The only issue I found, and of course we're comparing this to the Polar H10 heart rate strap, which is very accurate, but the only issue I found was when I was doing intervals at the end of my run. You can see that it doesn't quite get up to my peak heart rate fast enough when I was doing those, and so it ends up trimming the top of my heart rate a little bit lower than what it actually was. But otherwise, for a steady state run, it was really doing a great job. So overall, the accuracy of this G-SHOCK watch was very impressive. And just as a quick aside, the battery life on here was getting me through about 1.5 days. Of course, if I used the GPS more, it was easily dead by the end of a day. If I used it less, I could get through maybe a little more than a day and a half, but it wasn't a super long battery life, which also reminds me that if you guys want to know about my top 5 smartwatches, I actually have that video like already queued up, ready to come out very, very soon. If you guys want to see that, definitely do click that subscribe button below and the notification bell so you don't miss it when that comes out. Now, there are some really great features on here that I'll show you during an interface tour, but some of these include offline maps, VO2 max, recovery time, offline Spotify, Find My Phone, music controls, and I didn't actually see sleep monitoring on here, but I imagine you might be able to download a third-party app on the Google Play Store and monitor your sleep that way. But with that being said, guys, let's actually jump into an interface tour, and then I also want to show you the app on my phone because G-SHOCK kind of gives you their own software as well. Besides just having Google's WearOS on here, they have their own app on the watch and of course their own app on your phone that give you a lot more data, a lot more insight into how your workouts actually look. All right, now taking a look at the interface, you can see right there the second display. If I push any one of the buttons, the main display comes on, and we have a couple different watch faces. If you tap and hold on this, it allows you to change any part of that. So the middle part we can have as a digital clock or a analog clock. If we tap and hold on the bottom, we can change that as well to really a ton of different things. Same thing on the top, kind of a quick little display, and that's the main watch face they give us. If we tap and hold in the middle, we can actually go into a bunch of different ones. So right here is a dual layer where both layers are on at the same time. And of course, you could add other watch faces if you want. Now looking at the 3 buttons, if we press the blue button on the top right, it brings us into a workout. And if we press the bottom button, we can actually change the workout to really anything we want. There's a lot of different workouts to choose from right here. And so we can go to like a fishing workout, trekking workout, snowboarding, a lot of extreme sports obviously, and of course some more common ones like road biking, trail running, and just regular running. Now if we go into any one of them, so let's just say running, and I press the middle button, or we actually now want to press the top button to start it, it'll actually go and say it's ready to start in 3, 2, 1, or you can just press start now and get it going early. And once it starts, this is what it's going to display. It's going to be acting as a watch face right now, and whenever you're done, again, going back up to the top right button, we can tap on that, we can pause it, and then we can go down to actually stop this, and if we press and hold it, that is how you're going to stop it, and then you can save it or you can discard it. I'm going to get rid of that one. And that's pretty much what you'll need to know about the workouts. If we press the middle button, this is your home button, your back button. We've seen this on WearOS before. And so we can go to our app drawer, and there's a lot of different apps you can get on here, even more in the Play Store. And then pressing that, we can go back again. If we press and hold that, we'll get Google Assistant. What's the weather in Miami, Florida? So there we go. You can see things like that. It doesn't actually talk to us, obviously, but you're using the display, and you can do whatever you need there. Now the bottom button opens up the Casio or the G-SHOCK app, and if we press it again, it'll kind of cycle through a lot of different things. So the theme color, the map, heart rate graph, you can go to timepiece and change all kinds of different stuff on here. You can see a barometer, and if you want to open up any one of these, it'll show you a graph and a lot more information like that. So this app is really pretty impressive, and there's a lot of functionality in here as well, including a compass. So if you just want to go there, you can see what direction you're pointing. Like a lot of really cool things that are hard to find a good app for in the Google WearOS store. So I was happy to see all of that right there. And other than that, you're going to see pretty standard WearOS functionality here. Swiping through, you have your tiles over on the right side, and I don't really use the tiles that much. On the left side, you have like a quick little Google My Day thing, as well as access to the voice assistant. On the bottom, you have your notifications. And then on the top, actually, I think I'm getting a phone call right now. There we go. So right there, it says I'm getting a phone call. It's vibrating. I can answer it or I can reject that. And I'm going to reject it right now, and I'll call her back in a second. And I could swipe down from the top and have some quick settings here. And this will allow me to find my phone or go into theater mode, change the brightness, go into battery saver mode, all types of stuff like that to make the, to do anything you need to do, very quickly. So that's pretty much everything in the interface. Obviously, there's a lot to do here, and it's a pretty solid interface, even though Google hasn't done a lot to change this recently. Okay, now taking a look at the app very quickly, it's honestly a really simple app. So we have home, activity, and more. So starting with home, you can scroll down and it shows you like how many steps you had today, how many calories you burned, the distance you ran. Unfortunately, that's in metric right now. And if we go up to activities, we can go to see activity details, and it'll show me like my most recent run and a lot of information about the run. So I really like how this is set up. The only complaint I really have is that I find that I have to hit this little refresh button in the top corner very, very often. Like a lot of times after a run, it won't show up until I tap that button, or maybe 3 or 4 times. Otherwise, if we go down to activity, again, you'll see all of the recent activities we did. If we go over to more, you have some basic settings here. And of course, you can link with either Strava or Google Fit. So, I mean, it's nice to have. But overall, the app is very simple. And I'm sure you could guess based on the design of the watch, but of course the watch straps on here are by no means chintzy. They're really comfortable, like I said, and they have a nice little double buckle right there, so you can see it snaps in very well. It's very, very secure when you get it to the right spot, and you're not really going to be replacing these very easily. You can see that we can put a little hex wrench in on either side to undo that, but it's not going to be like a little quick release. You're not going to be replacing this with like a leather strap, obviously. So you want to make sure you're choosing the right color when you order it. Okay, so overall, what are my thoughts on the G-SHOCK GSW H1000? Well, I think by now it should be kind of obvious who is going to get this watch and who is not. Obviously, people who don't like the big bulky watch probably already clicked off this video. So the people sticking around, you really like this style, which means that it's going to be an appealing watch. Now granted, in 2021, I was very surprised that they didn't add NFC on here, that they didn't use a newer Snapdragon processor on here, and that they didn't add a larger battery or a solar panel on here. So those were kind of the three like Achilles heel of this watch. I really thought that we'd be seeing a better processor or at least a better battery life on here, especially because I imagine most people wearing this watch or looking to wear this watch are going on some more extreme adventures. I'm talking about like more rock climbing, more long distance backpacking, stuff like that, where you would probably want your watch to last more than just a day and a half. You'd probably want it to last maybe 3, 4, 5 days. And that's where I was kind of almost more impressed with last year's GBD H1000. This one, I've actually never charged it even now. It has Bluetooth and heart rate on here and GPS, and the solar panel is really why it's still alive. But that's the watch that I continue to take when I go backpacking. This one, however, I think is going to be less for those extreme athletes, people looking to really do that stuff, and instead maybe it'd be more interesting to people who just do some more day trips. Maybe you go kayaking, maybe you go rock climbing, right? But maybe you don't really go rock climbing that long, maybe a couple hours in a day, or maybe you do some other stuff like that. And whatever it is, if you're looking for something very durable, but you do expect to be around an outlet every night, then this is a solid watch. It's definitely, quite literally a very durable and solid watch. But of course, I think by now, you guys should probably know if this is the watch for you. I don't feel like this needs a solid conclusion because you know what it does and you know what it doesn't do. And I think some people right now either love it or you don't. But you guys can leave a comment below. Let me know what you think of the G-SHOCK GSW H1000. What do you like about it and what do you not like about it? As always, guys, if you enjoyed this video, consider liking and subscribing. I'm Mike O'Brien. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Oh yeah, and one other thing, this watch, it costs like $700 bucks. That sucks.